Right. Hello, all. I just wanted to make a quick video to try to help with the word problems in homework one. Um, so I'll hop over here. Okay, so we kind of went over this a little bit. Um, this is our general process for solving word problems. This will really work for any kind of word problem. We are coming up with linear equation and linear inequality word problems right now. Um, so really what that's going to mean is the single equation in one variable is kind of our goal. That's the linear part of this. Um, but this is kind of our general process for word problems. So to solve a word problem, the first thing we need to do is read the problem. Then I want you to read it again. And I want you to repeat reading the problem until you have kind of wrestled with the information that you're given and the information that you're asked for. Sometimes that's going to take a good bit of time. Sometimes you might have to read a problem 5 or 6 times for it to really start to make sense. And I know that can feel pretty frustrating sometimes, but just take deep breaths, fight through that. You can do hard things. So I just want you to kind of, keep taking deep breaths, keep reading it, don't give up, wrestle the problem into submission, figure out what you're given and what you're asked for. Um, the next step that we need to do is decide what your variable should represent. Now, this is not always going to be super obvious. You might have to do a little bit of work to decide what your variable should represent. Um, Part of this process is taking notes, writing down some of the things that you're given and some of the information that you read in the problem, and trying to organize it to figure out exactly what you're given and how to connect that with what you're asked for. Um, Sometimes you'll need to draw a picture. Um, do what you need to do, write some things down, and start to think about the link between what you're given and what you're asked to find. And in that process, hopefully you can identify something that's a missing piece of information. That's usually what your variable should represent. And once you decide what your variable should represent, I want you to write it down, make note of that. It'll seem obvious at the time what it represents, but by the time you finish solving the problem, sometimes exactly what that represented has kind of gotten fuzzier. So take the few seconds to write down what your variable will represent. That'll kind of help you in the end. Um, and then once you decide what your variable should represent and you kind of see the connection between what you're given and what you're asked to find, then you can translate the math, translate the English that you're given into math. Um, and you'll write a single equation in one variable. So you only want one variable in your final equation um, that you're going to solve. So one equation, one variable, that's our goal. And then once you have that one equation, sometimes it might actually be an inequality as well. Whatever that equation or inequality that you came up with, go ahead and solve it. And then after you've solved it, go back and take a look at the question and make sure that you answer the question that was asked. Sometimes the answer that you got from solving will be the answer to the question. And sometimes you might have to do an extra step to make sure that you're answering the question that was asked. Okay, so that's our process. Let's give it a go. Okay, so number one, Emily has test scores of 90, 80, and 88. Her online homework score is 98, which counts as one test grade. Emily still needs to take the final exam, which counts as two test scores. What does Emily need to score on the final exam to receive an A, which is at least a 90% in the class? Okay, so if you need to read it again, that's okay. Hit pause, read it as many times as you need to, take any notes that you might need, and start to kind of sift through this. Okay, So I'm going to kind of take some notes here as well so that I can start to sift through this and you can see my process. Okay, so the information that we're given, Emily has test scores of 90, 80, and 88. It doesn't specifically tell us if those are percentages or exactly what those are out of. I'm going to assume those are percentages, which means they're out of 100. So I'm going to say, okay, on her tests, Emily has a 90. Again, I'm going to assume that's a percentage. So I'm going to say that's out of 100. She has an 80 out of 100 and an 88. Let's see. We also are told that she has a homework score of a 98, which counts as one test grade. Again, that 98, I'm going to assume that's out of 100. It's a percentage. And in my scenario here, everything is out of 100. So that means that this homework is the same number of points as each test grade. So the homework here counts the same amount as one test grade. So we're good there. And then she still needs to take the final exam. She hasn't taken that yet. So I'm just going to kind of make a note that there's going to be a final. And it counts as 2 test scores. So each of our tests counted out of 100. So our final exam is going to be 2 test scores. So I'm going to go ahead and say the final exam is going to be out of 200. But she hasn't taken that yet. Okay, so that's what we know. That's all of the information that we have. What does Emily need to score on the final exam to receive an A, which is at least a 90% in the class? That's what we're asked to find. Okay, so I think I've sifted through what we're given and what we're asked to find. My next step is going to be figuring out what the variable should represent. And that's going to be if there's any missing information, that's usually a good clue as to what your variable should represent. So if I look at what I'm given, the big thing that stands out to me that I'm missing is right here. How many points does she earn on the final? That's the missing information here. And we're asked to find, what does Emily need to score on the final exam? What does she need to score? That's what we're asked for, and that's the missing information. I'm going to make that my variable, and I'm going to call my variable X. You can call it whatever you like. I'm just going to call it X because that's kind of what I'm programmed to do. So I'm going to say, okay, I put an X in there, and I'm just going to make a note here that X equals the points earned on the final. So that's going to be however many points she earns out of that possible 200. That's what my X represents in this scenario. Okay, and so now that we know what our variable represents, we need to try to come up with an equation. Okay, so what does she need to score on the final to receive an A in the class? All right, so I think to set up an equation, we're going to have to figure out how to figure out her grade in the class. How do you figure out your grade in a class when you're given a bunch of scores? Well, the answer is you add up all of the points that you've earned and you divide by the total number of points possible. That will give you a percent. So let's go ahead and add up what she's earned. So she's on her tests, she's earned 90 points and 80 points and 88 points. On her homework, she's earned 98 points. And we don't know how much she's earned on the final, but she's going to earn X points on the final. That's what my X represents. And then I'm going to divide all of those. That's the total number of points that she's earned. I'm going to divide by the number of points possible. So there was 100, another 100, and a third 100 for tests. There was the 100 points for her homework, and there's going to be that 200 points possible on the final. Those are the points possible in the class. When I take the points earned out of the points possible, that's going to give me the percentage written as a decimal. She wants to receive at least a 90% in the class. So in order for this percentage to be at least 90%, it would need to be greater than or equal to 90% written as a decimal, which is 0.9. Okay, that's our inequality. You could also make this an equal to sign, and that would kind of give you that kind of minimum cutoff that she would need to get a 90% exactly. This says at least, so I'm taking that at face value and I'm making it an inequality. But we can kind of, whether you write an inequality or an equal to sign, we'll be able to answer the question the same way. Okay, so now we have this inequality. So to solve this, we're going to solve it just like an equation. And then we just have to make sure to flip that inequality sign if we multiply or divide by a negative number on both sides. So to start solving this, we're going to simplify and combine like terms. I've got a bunch of things that I can add up here on the top. So if I put that into a calculator and add up all of those things, I get 356. And then I still have this plus x. Those are not like terms, so I can't combine those. I'll just leave them as is. All over, if I add all of these things up down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 600 down here. And I want that to be greater than or equal to 0.9. I've got a fraction here on the left side. That makes me kind of itchy. So I'm going to multiply both sides by the least common denominator here, which is 600. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply both sides here by 600. When I do that, it's going to clear that fraction. And so now let's go ahead and I will have 356 plus x left over here. And I'm multiplying by a positive 600, so I'm going to leave that as a greater than or equal to. And 0.9 times 600, that is 540. So now to get to x, I'm going to subtract 356 from both sides. When I do that, I'll have x left over here. I'm just subtracting, so I leave my inequality. 540 minus 356 is 184. Okay, so x is greater than or equal to 184. So we need to make sure we answer the question. What does Emily need to score on the final to earn an A in the class? X, that's the number of points that she earns on the final. That has to be greater than or equal to 184. So to answer the question, and I know I'm almost out of space here, so I'm really sorry how tight this is. So I'm going to write, to answer the question, I'm going to say Emily needs to earn at least 184 out of 200 points. Sorry. On the final. If you want to write that as a percentage, 184 points out of 200 is a 92%. So you could also write that as a 92%. Okay, so let's start the second one. Police is pricing gym memberships. One gym charges $50 per month for a membership that includes unlimited group fitness classes. Another gym charges $12 per month plus $6 per group fitness class that you attend. How many group fitness classes must Elise attend per month to make the all-inclusive membership more economical? Okay, so again, if you need to pause the video, read it a few more times, do your thing. Um, I am going to start taking some notes to sift through all of this and try to figure out what we have, what we're asked for, and how to kind of connect the dots here. Okay, so Elise is pricing gym memberships, and there's two different gym options here. And we want to know um, which gym membership is going to be more economical. What that means is which one's going to be cheaper. So we're going to have to compare the costs of these two gyms. So I'm just going to take some notes here. So we got to figure out what the cost of gym 1 is and the cost of gym 2. Okay, so the first gym, it charges $50 per month for a membership, and that includes unlimited group fitness classes. So the cost of the first gym is just $50 each month. And then the cost of the second gym, it says, is $12 per month plus $6 per group fitness class that you attend. Okay, so the cost of gym 2 is going to be $12 to join, and then it's going to be $6 more for every group fitness class that you attend. So to find the cost of this, there's a piece missing here because it's going to be that $12 that you pay for your membership plus $6 per class. So the cost of gym 2 is going to depend on how many classes that you go to. And we're asked, how many group fitness classes must Elise attend per month? So because we're asked for that, and that's some missing information that's going to affect the cost of gym number 2, that's a great option um, for our variable. Again, you can call the variable anything you like. I'm programmed to make it X, so I'm just going to go ahead and make it X. So I'm going to make a note here and say X equals the number of group classes. And I'll say each month just to make sure that that's clear in my brain. Okay, so then if X is the number of group classes that you attend each month, then let's figure out what the cost of gym 2 is in terms of X. So the cost of gym 2 is $12 plus 6 per class. So that means if you go to X classes in a month, you're going to pay $6 for each of those classes, which will be 6 times X. That will tell you how much you're paying on the group for the group classes. And then you have to pay $12 for your membership on top of that. So the cost for gym 2 is going to be that $12 plus $6 times the number of classes that you go to. So the cost for gym number 2 is 12 plus 6x. Okay, that's great, but we still don't have an equation. How do we get an equation from this? Okay, so how many group fitness classes must Elise attend per month to make the all-inclusive membership, that's the membership that you don't have to pay extra for anything, more economical? That means cheaper. So I want gym 1 to be cheaper than gym 2. That means that the cost of gym 1 needs to be less than gym 2. So let's figure that out. If I want the cost of gym 1, that's $50, to be cheaper or less than the cost of gym 2, which we said was 12 plus 6x dollars, then gym 1 will be more economical than gym 2. It will be cheaper. We want gym 1 to cost less than gym 2. That's what we have right here to create our inequality. Again, if you're having trouble with that, this is gym 1. We want that to be less than gym 2. That's what more economical means. It means cheaper. Okay, so now we have an inequality and we know how to solve this. So let's go ahead and solve this. So if you subtract 12 from both sides here, 50 minus 12 is 38. We keep our inequality symbol and we have 6x left on the other side. So to get to x, we're going to divide both sides by 6. And so this says x. We'll have x left over here. 38 divided by 6. I put that in a calculator, and it's going to be 6.33. Again, my brain has trouble when the variable's on the right, so I'm going to flip this around so that my x is on the left and that 6.33 is on the right. When I switch everything around, my inequality symbol needs to be eating the bigger one, which is x. And so this means x has to be greater than 6.33. And what does that even mean? We have to answer the question. How many group fitness classes does she have to go to make the all-inclusive membership more economical? So x is the number of group classes. To make gym 1 cheaper, we need x to be greater than 6.33. And since x is the number of classes that she has to attend, it should make sense. We can't attend a part of a class. Either you pay for the whole thing and you go, or you don't. So in order to make gym 1 cheaper, she would have to go to her 7th class, because the next number bigger than 6.33 is 7. So Elise must attend 7 group classes per month to get her money's worth in that all-inclusive. And we answered the question that was asked. Okay. Okay, we'll do a couple more of these here. So number 3, I think we'll do number 3, and then I think we'll come down and do number 5. Okay. All right, so number 3 here. Michael borrowed a total of $5,000 from 2 student loans. One loan charges 3% simple annual interest, and the other charges 2.5% simple annual interest. If he owed $132.50 in interest after the first year, determine the principal of each loan. Okay, you might need to read this a few more times. I know I do as well. So go ahead and pause the video, read it as many times as you need to, and then we will come back together. Okay. So Michael borrowed some money for student loans, and he's got 2 student loans. Again, I have no idea what my variable is going to be, so I'm just going to start taking some notes and try to figure that out. Okay, so he borrowed $5,000 from 2 student loans. I'm just going to make some notes here. 2 loans, so I'm going to have a loan 1 and I'm going to have a loan 2. I'm going to try to figure out what's going on with these. It's a total of $5,000, so I'm just going to make a note over here that these guys together add up to $5,000. One loan charges 3% simple annual interest. So I'll call that loan 1. So I'm going to say 3% simple annual interest. And loan 2 charges 2.5% simple annual interest. Okay. He owed $132.50 in interest after the first year. Determine the principal of each loan. Okay, so simple annual interest. How does simple interest work? This 3% annual interest. How does that work? Um, so interest. Basically, that's a charge that the bank um, charges you to use their money. So 3% annual interest. Basically, they're going to say however much money you have taken out, they're going to take 3% of that and they're going to add it to what you have. So however much is in loan one, it's going to be that amount plus another 3% of that amount. That's going to be the total that you owe. The interest itself is that 3% of what you have in there. So basically, 3% of what you have in there, that's going to be 0.03 times the principal, which is the money. So actually here, let's write this in a way that makes more sense in my brain. If you do 3% times the amount of money that you have in there, that's going to be your interest. It's going to be whatever the percentage written as a decimal times the number of dollars will give you the amount of interest that you're going to pay. Loan two is going to be 2.5% simple annual interest. So the interest on loan two is going to be 0.025, which is 2.5% written as a decimal, times the number of dollars you have in that loan. Okay, so that's how we find the amount of interest in each of these, but I still don't understand how to get an equation. So what are we missing? In order to find the amount of interest, what are we missing here? Well, I know the 0.03, that's the 3%. It's this piece right here that we're missing in each of these scenarios. It's how much money is in each of these bank accounts. And that is what we need a variable for. Our variable is going to have to represent the amount of money in these bank accounts. Now, the thing is, we've got two different loans. So it's going to be kind of hard to just have one variable. But I do know how these loans are connected. I've got $5,000 total in my two loans. So we'll just pick a loan, and the amount of money in that loan will be our variable, and we can figure out how much money is left in the other one. So I'm going to make loan one be, that's kind of my base. So I'm going to make a note here and say my variable, which I'm going to call X, that is going to be the number of dollars in loan one. I'm just going to kind of pick loan one. You can also pick loan two. It's totally up to you. As long as you make a note of it, it's all going to work out the same. Okay, so X is the amount of money that's in loan one. So my question is, how much money is in loan two? Let's see. So let's say X was 100. If I had $100 in loan one, how much would be in loan two? Well, I know I have to have $5,000 in loan one and loan two together. So loan two would have to then have $4,900 left in it. So if I have X dollars in loan one, then I would have to have $5,000 minus X. That's going to be the amount of money in loan two. Okay, so the amount of interest from loan one will be 0.03 times the amount of money in loan one. Well, the amount of money in loan one, I called that X. So this is going to be the amount of interest from loan one, is that 3% of X, 0.03 times X. And so the amount of interest coming from loan two is going to be 2.5% or 0.025 times the amount of money in loan two, Well, I said I have 5,000 minus X dollars in loan two. So the amount of interest coming from loan two is going to be 0.025 times 5,000 minus X dollars. This is just the amount of interest. All right, so this first one is interest in loan one, and this guy is interest in loan two. Okay, well, we're starting to kind of sift through this and get expressions here and there, but we still don't have an equation. Okay, there's still a piece of information we haven't used yet here. He owed $132.50 in interest after the first year. That means the total amount of interest was $132.50. So to find the total amount of interest, it's going to be the loan one interest plus the loan two interest will give us the total amount of interest overall. So we can use this to create our equation. So our loan one interest is that 0.03 times X. The loan two interest is the 0.025 times 5,000 minus X. And the total interest from both accounts together is $132.50. Okay, that's our equation. Now we just have to solve this. So to start, we'll distribute that decimal. So I'm going to have 0.03x plus the 0.025 times 5,000 is 125 minus 0.025x equals $132.50. I've got like terms here that I can combine. So 0.03 minus 0.025 is 0.005x. And then I'm still going to have that 125 here equals 132.5. We'll subtract that 125 from both sides. 132.5 minus 125 gives us 7.5 over here. And finally, we'll divide both sides by that 0.005x, which will give us x by itself. 7.5 divided by 0.005 is 1,500. Okay. So we've solved the equation. Now we just have to figure out how to answer the question. So they wanted to know, to answer the question, we need to determine the principal of each loan. That's the amount of money in each. So the number of dollars in loan one is X, which is 1,500. So loan one has $1,500 in it. And loan two has $5,000 minus that amount, which is $3,500. That is the principal in loan two. And there is the answer to our question. Okay. Okay, I know this video is getting a little long and I'm really sorry about that. I just wanted you to have a lot of opportunities to kind of see different questions and you can kind of pick and choose which ones that you need help with. So the last one that I want to do is the rectangular garden here. So let's read number 5. A rectangular garden is constructed so that the width is 100 feet. The carpenter can only use 800 feet of fencing. What are the possible lengths of the garden? Okay. Again, not really clear to me what our variable should be. So I'm going to draw a picture here to help me figure out what we have, what we need. So a rectangular garden, so I'm going to make myself a rectangle. There's our garden, is constructed so that the width is 100 feet. So here's my width, that is 100 feet. Okay, the carpenter can only use up to 800 feet of fencing. What are the possible lengths of the garden? Okay, so we've got 800 feet of fencing here. The fencing is all of this. So if I'm going to figure out how much fencing is used, I'm going to have to add up all of my edges here. That's the perimeter. So to find perimeter, I know I'm going to have to add up all of my sides. And both of my widths here are 100. But how long are these guys? That's what I'm missing. And that is what I'm missing. So that's my variable. So I'm going to go ahead and label my variable here. So I'll use L this time. So L is going to be the length of the garden. So this side is L and this side is L. The carpenter can only use up to 800 feet of fencing. They only have 800 feet to work with. So I know that the amount of fencing is going to be all four sides together. So that means 100 plus L plus 100 plus L. That's all of my sides added up. That has to be less than or equal to 800 because we've got 800 feet of fencing possible that we can use. We may not have to use all of it, but we can use up to that amount. So that's why I set all four sides added together had to be less than or equal to the 800 feet that we have available. And we have an inequality. Now we just have to simplify it. So we will combine our like terms here. I've got 200 plus 2L has to be less than or equal to 800. Subtract that 200 from both sides and divide by 2. So that means L has to be less than or equal to 300. What are the possible lengths of the garden? That's the question that we have to answer. The length of my garden is L, and so the possible lengths here is anything less than or equal to 300. So I'm just going to say the possible lengths are, I'll say anything less than or equal to 300. And units, 300 what? 300, that's a length, and the length and the units of length in my question are feet, so it has to be less than or equal to 300 feet. That is the answer to our question. All right, y'all. I really, I hope this is helpful. If you needed some help on the word problems, I know this got kind of long, and I'm sorry about that, but I hope it's helpful. Your homework is due on Tuesday, January 17th by midnight. And remember, we do not have class on Monday due to Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So I will see you back in class on Wednesday, January 18th. Have a lovely long weekend, and I'll see you next week.